Hello Internet, it's me, Dave. So the next series of videos I wanted to do is going to be more of that review and criticism like I did with The Last Jedi. This is going to be a little more heavy, I guess would be the word. I want to talk to you guys about the Foundation series by Asimov, which is one of my favorite book series, definitely in my top 5 for series of books. But beyond that, it's also just a very important series to science fiction. If you're familiar with the Foundation series, you actually can see a lot of its influence on all of the science fiction that has come since then. And there have been subtle references to the events of the book in other properties as well. For example, Foundation is founded on what's called psychohistory, right? And in an episode of Deep Space Nine, they actually do the exact same thing in pretty much the exact same way with the exact same rules. It was one of the Augment episodes. So I'd like to talk about Foundation here on this first one in the series. I'm just going to give some background on Foundation. It's actually broken up into multiple books. There's Foundation, Second Foundation, Forward the Foundation, Foundation's Edge. There's Asimov wrote a trilogy, right? And it's a collection of short stories, like a lot of his better work, like the iRobot stories and everything. They're a collection of connected short stories, and then after he had finished those and put them away, and he had done robots for so long, he went back to the Foundation series and actually started producing some sequels and prequels to continue the stories. So it's pretty interesting, and there are a lot of books to cover. So I'm going to start this video as like the, if you will, the foundation to Foundation, just going over the basics. So the idea behind the Foundation is, I'll give you the background. There was a galactic empire, right? And there was this mathematician, his name was Harry Seldon. Harry Seldon came up with a mathematical way to predict the future with incredible accuracy, right? And like, we're talking, he could predict roughly events that were going to happen down to a couple of years within them happening. But the thing is, it takes an incredibly large population acting as a unit for his mathematical predictions to work out. So the way it works is, it's called psychohistory. It takes a bunch of different variables, and the idea is, the larger the population that you're working with and the grander the time scale, the more accurate your predictions can be, right? So when he started doing the psychohistory thing and working out the empire mathematically, he figured out that the empire was going to fall, and that there were going to be thousands upon thousands of years of basically like an interstellar dark age, where like technology would stagnate, and there would be barbarism and death and destruction. So he figured out, using psychohistory, because when you have math and you have a solution, which he would have with psychohistory, you can work back from your solution and figure out ways to fix stuff. And that's what he did with psychohistory. So he founded the Foundation, a small government on a planet, and their job was to follow his plan that he had laid out mathematically. In following his plan, they would reduce the Dark Ages from like 10,000 years down to just 1,000, which still sounds like a lot, but is a way better deal, right? So the idea behind the Foundation series, that's the backstory, is that when there's a galactic crisis, because he's planned for everything mathematically, he knows everything that should be happening. They go into a vault, the leaders of the Foundation, and there in the vault is recordings that Harry Seldon made that explain to them the course of action they need to take to make the damage to the Foundation's future minimal, right? But here's where it gets a little crazy. The Foundation isn't the only foundation. He did the Foundation to be the government that continues on into a new galactic empire. But he also founded the second foundation. The second foundation hides in the shadows, right? They're kind of like spies. They don't have a public image. They don't officially exist. But they are the heirs to his math. The second foundation are the ones who continue to work out psychohistory, and they continue to act, solving minor imperfections in his equations by influencing events so that things turn out the way they're supposed to, right? I don't want to spoil any more of it before we get into actually talking about it, just in case I've piqued anyone's interest and they want to get started before the next video. But I will say that the Foundation, I picked it up relatively late in my love of science fiction. I had been really into sci-fi since I was about 8 or 9. That's the first sci-fi books I can really remember reading. And I didn't get to Foundation until I was 17. But I still reread the Foundation now, more than 15 years later, because they're compelling, they're engaging, they've got a lot of really interesting ideas. And like I said, the influence that they've had on science fiction as a whole is obvious whenever you're reading the books. So I encourage you, if you haven't checked out any of the Foundation, go ahead and start. In my opinion, a little bit like Star Wars, it's best to start in the order that they were released instead of the order in which they are set chronologically. He did write a few prequels. The problem with those prequels is when you're reading them, you get a lot more out of the knowledge that you would have already gained from reading the Foundation trilogy. So start with the trilogy. First book is called Foundation. It's by Isaac Asimov. It's pretty easy to find. There's always a couple copies in my local used bookstore. I've seen it online a lot of places, like Amazon, it's not a lot of money. It's worth your time and your money to check out. Go check out the Foundation. Thank you for joining me on Monday. I'm going to get a little more in-depth into the Foundation trilogy, the first 3 books. That's Wednesday that I'll be doing that. And then next week I'll do the more expanded universe, the sequels and the prequels, because let me tell you, no spoilers, but the sequels radically changed what we know about the universe of the Foundation. So it's a pretty interesting thing to cover. But that's all for today. I want to thank you for joining me. If you like what you saw, if you want to see more, if you want your friends to see more, I know I would like for them to see more, go ahead and hit that like and share and subscribe. If you want to be notified of my videos before I put them on the Facebook or wherever, go ahead and hit that bell notification icon and you'll get an email every time I put a new video up. If you want to support me and in a financial way with some money, I've got a Patreon set up. There are exclusives for the people who join on Patreon. The great thing about that, like I've said before, is the more money I make on it, the more time and equipment and everything I can dedicate to the project, which means the better quality content, right? So it's win-win. If you like what I'm doing and you'd like to see it better, then go ahead and help out with spreading the word. I want to thank everybody for joining me today, and I will see you Wednesday. Have a good one. Goodbye.